Hey guys, a big Saturday in Europe for Open Qualifier 3 here. We are rocking with apparently Jack in Game 6 here against Ninjas in Pajamas. This is the Open Uppers. I don't know if this necessarily has like a quarterfinals name or whatever, as Jack is going to float one over the top of Nas after a huge challenge on Itachi there in the corner. I want to talk about all of our teams, but I really wanted to start off with apparently Jack here just because I feel like we kind of forgot about him in a sense. Of course, nobody forgot about apparently Jack, but I just mean as a top player in the world. It was like, oh, now he does so much content, and he's deeper into his career, and this is Stizzy's team now. These are some of the things that you heard at the start of the season, but Jack out here after what was a good season but disappointing for Gen G just because of the quality of players that you have. Jack is now over back into the strongest region in the world, his home region here in Europe, and they have a pretty reasonable shot to get Europe's number 2 seed here behind Carmine Corps, depending on results tomorrow. And as Jack is trying to break down the defense with a couple fakes in the corner, let's talk through this matchup against Ninjas in Pajamas from today. Outside of a 5 goal explosion that Ninjas had in game 4, Ninjas really struggled to score the ball. They averaged under a goal per game. Dignitas were super physical with them, and Nip, they took a ton of shots, but they struggled to make Dignitas scramble on their own goal line, break them down with physical plays or solo outplays. Just really couldn't break them down. Dignitas registered a ton of saves en route here, and the demo battle was won decisively by Dignitas here. Coming into the season, Ninjas seemed like they were probably the third strongest team, depending on where you kind of had Gentlemates. And oopsie on that one, right? Gentlemates. Not going to talk about them too much in this video, but they're going into a weird trade deadline. More to come on them in a future video for sure. But Ninjas, it was like, man, I mean, this team is going to score like a gangbusters. Nas looks like one of the strongest young prospects in the world. Oski has always done a ton of scoring on his teams, as Nas is going to tie up the score here. And Itachi, the consummate teammate, the great connector, always making his teammates better. So for them to get stifled here offensively against Dignitas, who have really picked up the pace after making that grand finals in Open 2, just surprised by not the result necessarily, but the way it happened, the way it came to fruition, says a lot about Dignitas, and also makes me feel a little more clear on where Ninjas are in the grand scheme of things contextually heading into Birmingham, as they have got run over by Carmine Corps a couple of times, and Dignitas have put up some pretty dangerous fights if we're just using that matchup against the best team in the world as a barometer. And furthermore, only a single goal here from Stizzy, and Dignitas still closed in 6 on Neo Tokyo. Oopsie, spoiler alerts if you didn't catch the matchups from earlier today. Fingers crossed that you did. But Dignitas, tough matchup tomorrow. They cannot overlook Geek. They're in a position, Geek that is, to sneak into a LAN here after winning the grudge match against 100%. Two teams who are still technically in the chase to make it to Birmingham. 100%. Their split is over. They are going home empty-handed. We're going to talk a little bit more about them in a little bit here too. But Geek, they're in a similar spot to where they ended off last season. That at least being the Archie and Joyo combination. Do you remember last Worlds? They were part of Oxygen last season. They actually didn't qualify for the World Championship, but there was that weird situation where Naupo's team from Mina couldn't make it, and Oxygen had the next best points. So they were like, all right, I guess Oxygen is going to the World Championship. They end up making a top 6. They eliminate Vitality from Worlds. They eliminate gentlemates from Worlds. So Geek in a position here where there's obviously pressure from themselves, but I would assume minimal expectations from the community at large to qualify here for Birmingham when we have our what seem like the top 4 teams. That is not a matchup that Dignitas can overlook because Geek definitely have the power to come out and surprise them and really make this final open of the split really mucky as we head towards Birmingham. 12 seconds left. Dignitas just trying to run the clock out here. See what they're able to do with it. Aussie's just going to pump this one forward. Jorius with a great cut. Going to try and stick with this. Nas is up, but this one pops all the way back. Itachi's got plenty of time. I would assume he's going to send this over to Nas, which he does. But Jorius going to jump ahead of that one after beating the heck out of that top 8 curse. Jorius is going to finish off this series here against Ninjas. I want to talk a little bit more about the other teams we haven't mentioned. We haven't even touched on our big dogs in Vitality and Carmine Core. So let's hop over to a wild series from today, a game 7, and continue to work through all of the action that happened on the pitch today. All right, our only Champions Field Game 7 matchup of the day between Geek, who we talked about a second ago, and 100%. We're rocking with Archie Point of View. Look at that, a pink Shisha Octane. You don't see many of those these days. I think the only person still rocking this on a semi-regular basis is Archie, although I could be forgetting somebody. And Oli over there on the Batmobile. We're just totally turning back the clock in this matchup here. Geek to tie a bow on them. What a pinch. Oh my god. To tie a bow on this team. They have a grudge match tomorrow. At least Joyo does, against his former teammate Cash the Cannon. A redemption team who are making their first playoffs of the season. And actually, some interesting facts about Redemption's team this season. The second ever playoff appearance for Toxic. The third ever playoff appearance for Smokes. 2 strong young players who, when you looked at this roster, at least me, preseason, I was like, ooh, they could do some damage, especially with Cash, as Joyo is going to open up the scoring here. And Cash, still tied with Monkey Moon, Archie, and Itachi for making every single main event in Europe in the open era, which is just incredible. If you would have asked me who qualified in that stat, Cash would not be high on my list, but the Cannon, one of the most consistent players in European open era Rocket League, which is super impressive. And that stat, by the way, via Direct. I want to talk, of course, about Vitality and Carmine Core, but real quick, just while we're watching 100% here, what a split from 100% and start point for that matter as well. I mean, Louis P, I think back to his days on, Navi and Guild and Resolve most recently, and Louis P just always seemed like one of those players who was good but didn't really have the tools to put it all together to really contend at this upper echelon of Europe. The only thing I knew about Louis P really was the fact that he used to use those like wheels that were like super thin, like the wagon wheels. If you know what I'm talking about, you'll know how disgusting those things look. But since the Shift Summer League, he's kind of turned himself into an incredibly well-rounded player who, especially his teams offensively, just absolutely crank. And more to say about his teammates. I mean, Acro is a huge weapon offensively. Those Top Cougar, that Top Cougar roster, for example, even his days when he was on Guild with Louis P, they could get it going. But the real difference maker has been Rezi, who comes into this roster after really, really surprising everybody and capturing the scene with that Hogan mode roster. and then he gets a huge opportunity on Moist, similar to like a Juicy. You remember when Juicy, everybody was like, oh my gosh, this guy's so good, and then he gets a huge opportunity with Moist, but it's not exactly the best position for him. And after a disappointing season, speaking for both Resi and Juicy, they end up getting a new opportunity and shine even more in that role. And let's look back at this one. Who's missing on the backboard? I think this is Joyo, who just gets stuck in a tough spot after Oli whiffs, and then Joyo can't get the read, and then a super lucky dunk there from Acro to keep them ahead here in this game 7. But now Resi, I mean, I've tweeted about him a couple of times, just looks like one of the most composed and complete players mechanically on the ball that we have. Leads European Rocket League and perhaps the world in overtime game winners. Coming into Open 3, he had 6, which was incredibly impressive. So this 100% roster, I don't know if they're intending on sticking or what, but they definitely have surprised me and many others this split by being in contention as heavily and late into this split as they were. Archie with a great dump down pass there, really stretching out the 100% defense here. Oli sticking with it. Joyo in the middle, right back to Oli. Right place, right time is going to equal us up with a minute to go here. And for start point, a Chronic was the glue. He was the veteran for that Team Liquid roster with Oski and Atau. Makes a grand finals to end last season with Atomic and Tox, and now returns and is still in form, leading this team. Eugen, one of the most exciting young players in the world, in my opinion. And it looks like they're going to stick together as far as the tweets are reading here. Staying with Matane, who I thought was a top 30 player in the world heading into this season. Long career with Arju, Galaxy Racer, Misfits, Sonics, Monkeys, and now he's still keeping offensive sets alive for that start point roster. Very smart connector. And this play right here, gotta watch this back. Look at Archie just doing all the small things, exactly what you want from a player like him who is trying to get the most out of Joyo offensively, and Oli always a great scorer in his own right. That second touch right there completely freezes Acro on the backboard and sets them up in a position to win this series that was win or go home. Archie here off the kickoff, gonna get the kill. Louis P isn't quite there to get the read on it. Gonna get tripped off this ball. Resi in the corner. Oli with a strong challenge. Not gonna go too quick here. Joyo's gotta get a touch on that. Gets it cleanly. Walks it past Resi, and that is a tough position for Acro. Let's see how they can keep this one up. Acro unable to keep his head on the play. Oli's gonna pop this, and this is a real scramble for 100%, but that is a good ball for Resi. And what an incredible pinch back. Louis P tries to keep this one alive, and this will die sooner or later, I promise you. And then everything you've been waiting for, Vitality and Carmine Core. There is that ball down to the ground. Archie, all capital letters on his name now, removed the money symbol that he had yesterday. Ton of shots here for Geek, who just overwhelmed 100%. Acro, 6 saves. Oh my goodness. Now, let's go back and talk about Carmine and Vitality quickly to wrap things up. We're going to have a ton of thoughts on them as we head towards Birmingham, so I didn't want to overwhelm at the start of this video, but a couple of things here. Vitality and KC, they played 4 times this season. If we're counting flip and spin during the offseason, it was the same rosters. Carmine Core are 4-0 in the series set, but let's run through them. Flip and spin, 4-1 KC. Open number 1, 4-0 KC. Open 2, 4-3. We go to a game 7, so we're getting even closer. And then open 3 here, they played earlier and they go 3-2. So the gap is clearly closing between these two teams, which is an excellent sign for Vitality, who I still have high hopes of once we get to the international stage. They're the only team to take Carmine Core to 7, and they're one of only 2 teams who took them to a game 5, the other one being 100%, who we just saw get sunk here. But Vitality, they got to go through that Ninjas in Pajamas team who beat them in Open 2. And of course, we talked about Ninjas to open up the video. Guys, who do you have your eyes on heading into Championship Sunday here to determine what teams are going to represent Europe at the inaugural major for this season? Is there a specific team that you're excited to see their results? Is there a player who you're looking at to shine? Definitely let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for giving me time out of your day to talk a little Rocket League. And until next time, guys, take it easy.